Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled board meeting of the Akron Public Schools Board of Education on 12 April 2021. We appreciate everyone being here today for our difference of time due to some other activities, superintendent search and other things. We wanted to change our time. So we're going to go ahead and get started and do roll call and turn it over to Mr. Pendleton.
Dr. Akbar.
Here.
Mr. Alexander.
Present.
Ms. Autry.
Present.
Mr. Bravo.
Present.
Dr. Hall.
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Here.
Mrs. McKittrick.
Here.
And welcome online to our student board member, Kyrese Brunson, today. It's a change from your schedule that you have from East CLC.
Thank you. I don't see Kyrese signed in.
Couldn't get in. Okay. He's not going to join us tonight.
You said he's not?
He is not.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move to the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Alexander, if you can lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander. Next, we'll move to school and community reflections. Are there any school and community reflections? We'll start with Mrs. McKittrick. And then if you can raise your hand after her, we'll go with you next.
Akbar. I would first like to it's on. Okay. Congratulate Jackie Silas Butler on the latest Project Grad, March Gradness. It was probably the most fun I've ever had watching a game of Family Feud. So from everybody from Miss Silas Butler all the way down to the folks at the Knight Center who passed out the food, job well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Mrs. Mansfield.
So our school board member, Madison Deese, happens to be a pitcher for the Firestone High School softball team, and I have had the pleasure of getting to see her pitch twice. It's been a long time since I watched some good softball, and wanted to congratulate her and her team on their season. I have not seen a victory yet, so I'm starting to wonder if I'm like bad luck, but she's done a great job. And it's been really great to get back into watching some live sports. So I really appreciate that. I also want to congratulate her on her advocacy on behalf of students in general, and especially of the softball team. She called a meeting for herself and myself and asked that Deb Folk come and talk to us about COVID restrictions and policy and what that was and what that meant and how she could help better explain it to students. Deb, thank you very much. You did a fantastic job. And just want to congratulate Madison on taking that step, because that's exactly why we have student school board members. It's not just so they can come and represent, but it's also so that they can advocate for people at their school. So well done. I got to attend the robotics tournament at Firestone High School. Several of our schools were in participation for that. There was a series going around, and this one was in honor of Dan Spack, who unfortunately passed away last year during the beginning of COVID. So it was wonderful to be back in a building and to see students all participating. So really great job there. Then this past week, I actually got to present for the NSBA conference online, and a big thanks to Laura Kepler and Deb Folk for the information they were able to give. It was a session on ending childhood hunger, one neighborhood and one school at a time, and Akron was asked to represent as well as a superintendent from, I'm going to get it wrong, it was in North Carolina, and I can't remember which county right now, but lovely superintendent, and we had a really robust discussion about how we're not going to waste a perfectly good pandemic, and that we need to learn from what things were waived during the pandemic, because if they were waived, they were barriers that probably shouldn't be there for students and getting food into their hands and to the hands of families. So huge thanks to Deb and Laura for the information they were able to give me regarding statistics in Akron and the things that we've done. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mansfield. Anyone else? Ms. Autry.
Thank you, Mr. President. So on the 29th, right before spring break, I was invited by Mr. Kenny Smith from Bookdale Community Learning Center, who's a restorative practice coordinator there. He teaches a class called Success Prep. He has 2 8th grade classes. And I was invited, as well as our councilman, to sit in on a few things that they've been working on, including a few poems about where they're from. And it was very enlightening to hear some of their backstories in poetry form. We sat in circles with these young people. They had some of the more common things we hear about issues with cafeteria food. So I was able to hear a lot about that, but I also asked them what they liked so much about the class. The number one thing that kept coming to the forefront is how much they really like Mr. Kenny Smith. But there's only one of him, but that was just a common theme. They also felt really safe. They felt heard. They felt like it was a good place to get positive feedback without being judged. And I asked the students, what would make you come to a class like this in their summertime? They said, Mr. Smith. But they also indicated that if some type of art was included in that. They mentioned sports a lot. Some of the students mentioned a rage room, and I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with that, but it's I guess a room set up where you can just break things and release energy in a way that is safe. But that was mentioned several times. So, but the class is based around social emotional learning. It's offered to 8th graders at Bookdale, and the students really seem to appreciate the class. So they're hoping to see more of it in the future and even expand it in the summer somehow. So it's very special thank you to them for inviting me. Also, I just wanted to say a thank you to the folks who have emailed us in regards to the naming of Kenmore Garfield and everything surrounding that. I just want folks to know that those emails have been read and they're considered. I'm not sure how we're moving forward with that, but I can certainly relate to what it feels like having community pride and just the thought of a piece of that history possibly being lost. So I just wanted to acknowledge those folks and thank them for engaging. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hall?
Thanks, Mr. President. I had a similar comment to Ms. Autry as related to the community response around the Kenmore Garfield building and what it will ultimately be named. Again, want to thank the folks who've reached out. I think the one thing that it's important to note here is that there have been a number of folks who have emailed several of us, and they've laid out like multi-page letters that have been very thoughtful, respectful in how they've been sort of stated in making a case one way or the other on that topic. And these aren't 5-second responses. These are people that you can tell took maybe several hours to compose a response. And I think it's important for all of us to sort of recognize that this is an issue about which there are very passionate people that are taking time out of their work days and evenings to reach out to us. So I just would like to again thank them, and I would ask that continue. this is, all politics is local. And so, and there are 7 of us, and we're here, our best ability is our availability, and we're here to listen to you. And so keep those emails, calls, and letters coming. And that's super important, because you are being heard, and it is making a difference. So, but you need to keep it up. So please keep it up. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hall. Any other community and school reflections? Okay, hearing none, we will move to request to address the board. Currently, there's no request to address the board, so we will move forward from there and do approval of the previous meeting minutes from the regular meeting on March 22nd to the 2 special meetings on March 23rd and March 25th. Is there a motion to accept the?
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Bravo, seconded by Mrs. McKittrick. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Pendleton will do the roll call.
Dr. Akbar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we move to personnel recommendations. Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, Mr. President. Before moving approval, I'd like to point out item 16.1, where I regret to report that Thomas Turner, a temporary custodial worker for Akron Public Schools, passed away on March 24th, 2021. He had been an employee of the board since November of 2019. And with that, I would like to recommend approval of the personnel recommendations presented in categories 5 through 16.
There's been,
moved. Sorry.
okay, there you go. It's been properly moved by Mrs. Mansfield.
Second.
Is there a second?
Mr. Bravo.
Mr. Bravo has seconded. Is there any discussion? Mrs. Mansfield.
Just wanted to give my personal thanks and hopefully thanks on behalf of the board for the service of Mary Perkins in particular. She's been here and she's been a rock solid person that the board can rely on. And a lot of my interactions with her have been axillary, but whenever I needed her, she was always there. So just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander.
I just want to kind of echo what Mrs. Mansfield said about Mrs. Perkins. She's been here a long time, and I've had the pleasure of working with her for over 25 plus years. And she was responsible for helping us on our policy committee. And so she's done a lot, and she's going to be really missed, just like Mrs. Clackler is going to be missed. There are 2 that have been here and been stable employees for Akron Public Schools for a number of years and been solid and committed to the district. So we want to congratulate her on her retirement and wish her well during her retirement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we want to do roll call. Mr. Pendleton.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Akbar.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have resolutions and motions on the consent agenda. Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, Mr. President, I wish to recommend approval of the resolutions and motions presented in category 21.
Thank you. It's been recommended by the superintendent for the motions and resolutions on the consent agenda. Is there a motion on the table?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. McKittrick and
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Autry. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Pendleton, roll call, please.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Akbar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have business affairs recommendations. Mr. Superintendent.
Mr. President, I wish to recommend approval of the business affairs recommendations presented in category 23.
Thank you very much. It's been recommended for the category 23, business affairs recommendations. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Mansfield, seconded by Mr. Bravo. I'm sorry. It's been moved by Mr. Bravo, seconded by Mr. Alexander. Is there any discussion? Mrs. Mansfield.
I just can't tell you how excited I am to see proms and graduation on there. Thank you so much, Mr. Superintendent, and can't wait to hear more information about that. But what a relief that feels like, so thank you.
Yes, agreed. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Pendleton?
Mr.
Roll call,
Bravo?
please.
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move to superintendent's report.
Just one item, as was brought up earlier. Project Ujima did conduct some discussion circles with staff, students, and community regarding Kenmore Garfield, and I hope to have that report and present it to board at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that update. Any questions for the superintendent? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to president's report. Just three things. I'll start actually with the Kenmore Garfield renaming. As Mr. Superintendent said, we will receive the first part of the report from Dr. James at the next meeting, is the hope. And then we will have time to review it. Dr. James then will give us a formal recommendation at our meeting probably following that. We will ask the board, that will be our first meeting in May, we'll ask the board to consider both the report from Project Ujima and the recommendation from the superintendent. And we can either make a decision at that meeting, or what I would suggest us to do is to think about all of that in total, go back, talk to people, and then at our final meeting in May to make that final decision. But we'll have that opportunity to see if that's the course of action we want to take. But I think we do want to keep on course, like we stated, is to make a decision before the end of May that will give time for the builders as well to do everything they need to do to put up the name and all of that around the building. So any questions or discussion on that? Okay. Hearing none, just want to thank everyone for participating in the board professional development process, phase 1. We are moving into phase 2 of that process. So if you have not received outreach for further participation, that means that you may not be needed for phase 2. But those of you who have will need to respond. Ms. Solomon should have sent everyone doodle polls to try to get that scheduled. So if you could respond, that will be great. As Ruth has done an outstanding job trying to help coordinate all of this process for us. So we'll then move to phase 3 from there. And the hope is, along with our treasurer and CFO and superintendent to yet to be named, we will have in July sometime a board retreat to kind of culminate this process. So thank everyone for participating thus far. Any questions about that? My last thing is for everyone listening and just for the board, we're in the process of doing our interviews for the next superintendent. There are multiple forums for the community partners and business leaders, also for APS staff, and also open community forums at 6 p.m. Today, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We encourage everyone who can participate virtually to tune in to hear from those candidates, and also really would like to encourage you to complete the forms so that we can have feedback on your thoughts around the strengths and weaknesses of each one of those candidates. And each one of those sessions will be very helpful to this board as we make this very important decision about our next leadership of this district. And that's what I have for our report. Any questions about that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our treasurer and CFO report. Mr. Pendleton?
No report this evening.
Wow, okay. Thank you very much. Committee reports, we'll start with legal contracts and board policy.
No report.
Okay. I didn't even get your name out yet. Okay, no report for legal contracts and board policy. Finance and capital management, Mr. Bravo.
Our meeting is scheduled for next week. That's our
Okay,
report.
Thank you. So no report. Next week is the meeting. Everyone who can attend, please do. Instructional policy and student achievement.
No report.
So the board should check their email later today. There'll be an email from Dr. McWilliams-Woods going over some things that were as a preview, so that we could cut presentations tonight down a little bit. We want to make sure senior staff can participate in some of the upcoming events this evening. So
Thank you very much. And appreciate that. Moving forward to Equity Committee, Dr. Hall.
So I will save the day. I have a very robust report out that will take the next 45 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Just a little Board of Education humor. So we met, our committee met last Thursday, April 8th, where we continued our movement in integration of Ms. Chapman as our new Chief DEI Officer. She's doing a fantastic job as she moves forward to facilitate that committee alongside myself, Mr. Alexander. We began by just getting an update around, as related to our district equity audit. We put out an RFQ where we'll be accepting proposals for developing, implementing, conducting, and analyzing and reporting on the district's equity audit. And we're going to focus on 3 areas: human resources, business affairs, and community relations to start. Next, we had a really informative presentation that was done by Ms. Karen Gijic from Teaching and Learning on really kind of providing an update around the initiatives that they're engaged in around equity and across it. So she began by sort of talking about sort of where we are, where we've been, where she referenced the work that Mr. Alexander did around bringing an equity policy to us in 2017, and then kind of walked us through current initiatives and then where they hope to go. And there was really a lot in there. Again, I'm doing a disservice by not walking you all through the slides because it was really that good. But just a couple of highlights. We talked about really auditing some of the content. That's one of the things that's coming along the way. I think we're going to begin with social studies. And then also, really utilize, and that will really allow us to utilize our newly hired DEI learning specialist as well. So that person's going to get put right to work. We talked about new faculty orientations and some of the movement around professional development, and incorporating more of an equity framework to allow our teachers to sort of view things more through an equity lens. And so identifying that. That this is currently, all this is really a work in progress, but again, just want to thank her for the time that she put in to doing that presentation, because it really made me feel a whole lot better. I see that she's in a room, so thank you, Ms. Gijic, appreciate it. Thank you for your time. And so that was sort of where we left things. I think future actions, again, we'll continue to have, I forgot. So each department is also doing equity assessments as well, and so we'll begin to hear the results of those departmental equity assessments as we sort of move into subsequent meetings, and then begin the process of bringing folks back to provide updates on how their equity work plans are progressing. So I'll leave it there, and again, just want to sort of thank you, thank the committee for their ongoing work. So I'll see the floor back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the Equity Committee? Ms. Autry.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's not actually a question. I didn't see on the agenda an item for the Ad Hoc Communications Committee who has met.
You're
since-
right. Okay, so you are next. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
no
much.
problem. Ms. Autry.
So on the 29th, the Ad Hoc Communications Committee did meet for our second meeting, and it was a very informative meeting. Our invited perspectives to that meeting were Dr. Loy and Wynn and May Walker. Dr. Wynn is doing a lot of great work in the North Cluster as far as communications are concerned. And she shared with us as a reminder to everyone, you know, that we have 64 different languages and dialects, that we have 26 interpreters to manage our top 17 languages that we have, and we do contract with another agency who manages the other languages 24/7 around the clock. And we also have bilingual staff who are very helpful with assisting with interpretations and whatnot. We discussed North High School graduates possibly being a pipeline for us in the future, because many of them have had the experience of having to deal with language barriers, and as they proceed through our system, coming back to possibly assist us with those families in that community. She shared also some of the things that they've been doing, including videos for those who don't read in their language, Google Forms for any APS employee to kind of assist with any barriers they have. And she gave me an example of bus drivers who've reached out just for signage on the bus, something we probably don't think about, but that is very necessary as more of our students are using our transportation. We discussed that turnaround time can be a challenge. I learned that Dr. Wynn also is the person who takes all the emergency calls. So we have just her, that one person, managing those after-hours emergency situations. So that was discussed. May Walker, who is a former principal and social worker, helps with our family liaisons, and she just discussed how they've grown from 7 to 28. We're still seeking out those liaisons. They're coming to be a very important part of our communication, because they're the connectors to our families, and they only work 24 hours a week. And she did mention pay. So I know that was an issue that came up with, and they're a very valuable part of our team. So I think it's important, as we expect more from them, that they are adequately compensated, in my opinion. They are 211 trained, and they do 2 events per year for families that they're responsible for. And then also, Mark Williamson gave us an update on our HubSpot, which is the current platform we've been using that's really growing really well. And we're just looking to further expand that, and we'll have more updates on that. And at our next meeting, our invited perspective will be Marsha Pullman from College and Career Academies. And that's all.
Thank you very much. That was a very robust meeting, it sounds like. Kind of sad I missed it. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Autry? Okay, hearing none. I did leave out one item out of my report, which is a legislative update that we did receive a request from State Senator Sykes to have a visit with our board at our next meeting between Senator Sykes and Leader Sykes and Representative Golonsky, our legislators who cover Akron Public Schools in Columbus. So we will be having them come next meeting to talk with us about that process. We've been very blessed to have Mr. Pendleton work alongside them, especially with Senator Sykes on the Cupp-Patterson bill and the Senate companion. That was there before, and that's working now as well. So he wanted to come share some news about that, as well as the pivotal role that we've played there, in ways we can actually play some more pivotal roles in the future. So we'll have that update at our next meeting as well. So I'm really excited to to expand that partnership as well. Any questions on that? Okay, with that being said, there's no unfinished business, as well as currently there's no new business unless there's new business that the board would like to add today. Hearing no one jumping up for joy to add new business, we'll close that out. There's no need for recess into executive session, so we will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Bravo,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. McKittrick. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. We will be back. The board will be tomorrow for 2 of our candidate interviews, which will be conducted in executive session. But we will do have special board meetings for those, as well as one on Wednesday as well. So we'll see everyone back here tomorrow. Thank you, and go to the community forum. Yes.
Do we do a motion?
Yes.
Roll call? Yeah. Our way out of here?
Oh, I'm sorry. We don't. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say we don't do. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. I was gonna say there's no. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. As what? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You mean the forums? Oh, you mean you mean the committees?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Be able to pop in and,
Yeah.
don't sit and stare at it, right?
Yeah.
You can listen to it
Yeah.
on cooking dinner or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, with you, I'm with you.